he said music is a team sport, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I had never really thought, I never heard anyone like put it that way, but it really is a team sport now, you know, and it's really about like getting the best final product.
Cool. Thank you so much for doing this, Paul. I appreciate it. I'm Adam, and this is the podcast about you and your journey in music.
Nice. I wish I could have set up a mic or something, but my AC in my house broke a couple days ago, and my home studio with like my nice setup is like really hot in there right now. So
all good, man. It sounds
I hope it sounds okay.
It sounds great. Sometimes the computer mic and the whatever compressor that Zoom uses, it sounds pretty good.
Okay, yeah, and then this is like the newer laptop, so I think it's got a good mic and speakers.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Killer, man. Well, again, this is about you and your journey in music and how you got to where you are now. Were you born and raised in LA?
I'm born and raised in LA.
Not many people born and raised in LA.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, I meet people, especially in the music industry, creative industries, and like almost everyone moves here from somewhere else. So
right. I'm from San Diego. It's the same thing. Like no one was born. Yeah. Not a lot of people are born and raised there.
Yeah. But no, I'm saying my mom moved here from the Ukraine when she was 14. She moved to Chicago. So I'm first generation. You know, she basically grew up here, so you can't even really tell that she's from there, but she was a singer as well. So she was like a child prodigy in the Ukraine. She won a bunch of talent shows for singing. And then, you know, it was the Soviet Union back then. So my grandparents, you know, had an opportunity to leave and come to America, and, you know, the rest is history.
Wow. So yeah. Was your mom still singing, you know, when you were growing up and everything?
Yeah. She actually recorded 2 albums in the US with a producer that was from there, that he came to LA, and they made 2 albums, and they came out in Russia. And, you know, at that time, this was like probably like mid to late 90s.
Uh-huh.
You know, like distribution was very different. You couldn't just like put an MP3 up on Spotify. So you know, it was sold in Russia, and she lived here, and, you know, apparently it sold like pretty well in Russia. She did some concerts here, but, you know, she never really saw any money from it, because it's just wild west out there. I mean, it's kind of wild west in music
right here.
So there, it's even crazier. But so, you know, she started like a business, and she still does music like for fun. You know, she's got a piano, a big grand piano at home, and she sings like for her friends when they come over. But yeah, she's very musically inclined. Like, she's got like perfect pitch and plays a bunch of instruments. I'm not classically trained in any instruments, but I got into DJing really young. So
cool. So did she kind of have an influence on you wanting to pursue music?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there was music all around the house, and always pianos, guitars, drum machines. She had a really big vinyl and CD collection that I would always listen to. Definitely influenced me. I wish she had pushed me to like play more, play instruments more. But I guess, like, you know, everything kind of happens for a reason. And, you know, now these days, it's like the technology and the ability to collaborate with other musicians is kind of like part of the process now anyway. So, you know, I'm okay just kind of knowing the music theory, and not being able to play actual instruments. Like, I'm comfortable with that at this point.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's crazy how just even with Zoom now, I mean, you could work with anyone across the world.
Yeah, I mean, the technology's really allowed for collaboration to happen so easily and naturally. And I think music is very naturally, it's a very collaborative thing. And I love one of the songwriters I work with a lot. His name's Kane. He's a very successful guy. He's had a lot of recent success with Sweetie and Doja Cat. He wrote the Best Friend record for them. He
Wow.
wrote Big Energy for Lotto. Very, very talented songwriter I work with. And he had a saying, he said music is a team sport, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I had never really thought, I never heard anyone like put it that way, but it really is a team sport now, and it's really about like getting the best final product. And without collaboration, I think it's very hard. It's very hard to not have multiple perspectives and multiple people working on a song or a project. I think it's really important.
I totally agree. And I feel like that's something like you don't see as much of, like one person sitting down like, okay, I'm going to write all these songs for this band. And that's it. Like, it's more of a, like you said, a collaborative record, like all these new
Yeah.
songs coming out. It's just so many people are involved, which is awesome.
It's crazy. I mean, I see my cats are playing with all this shit right now.
It's all good.
Like I see like 30 writers on a song sometimes, like all the credits on like some of these pop songs, and it's like 30 songwriters, and it's the process it's so cool. Honestly, it's so like revolutionary and modern the way that these records come together. You got a guy making loops in Germany or Sweden, and he sends the loop to a guy in New York, and then the guy in New York programs some drums over it, then sends it to his friend in LA, and that guy's in the studio with Travis Scott, and then it ends up getting into Mike Dean's hands. And it's like, it's really crazy how these records come together now. But I think it's awesome. I mean, it's a lot of admin work probably for the A&R
sure. Make sure they get everyone's credit in.
Yeah, and I'm sure people get screwed over left and right, but I just think it's cool that like it just happens that way. I remember my buddy's like a big engineer, actually, worked on a lot of Kanye stuff. And he told me a story about how there was a record that made it on Kanye's album. I think it was the Ye album, the one that was the first one from Wyoming. And there was a guy, I won't like name any names. I don't know if this is public knowledge or not, but basically this guy had no idea that one of his demos like got to Kanye, and I guess Kanye had thought it was someone else's voice on the song, and he ended up leaving like the demo vocal thinking it was like a bigger artist that basically showed it to him. And then the songwriter heard the song on the album, like on the night that they played the release party or whatever. So it's like, it's so cool. It's like in the internet age, it's like anything could happen. And then he ended up finding out, obviously Kanye found out that it was someone else, and he flew the guy out and signed him like the next day.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's crazy. Well, then you said you started DJing at an early age. Was that your kind of introduction into music aside from, listening to your mom?
Yeah. So I got really into classic hip hop when I was like, honestly, like way too young, probably like, like looking back, I wasn't like the worst kid, but I definitely wasn't like a good kid. Like my mom, I put her through the ringer, and it was probably because I was listening to a lot of rap music and things I wasn't supposed to be listening.
9 listening to Wu-Tang Forever or something like that.
No, I mean, it's actually like, I remember Doggy Style, which was Snoop's first album, was like 94, and I was like 5 years old or 6 years old or something, and I distinctly remember like listening to that album. Yeah, and I got into rap. So DJs and rap go very hand in hand, and I started to see a lot of DJs in like the music videos and things like that. And really it was probably some of like DJ Premier's beats that had in them, where I got
old Gangstar records.
Exactly, yeah. All those old and all the early Jay-Z stuff, and the records he did on Nas's first album. And I just remember hearing like him scratching on the beats, and that sound obviously captivated me. And I bought turntables, and I was really young, just kind of messing around at home. Started doing some house parties in high school, little things here and there, and just kind of stuck with it. It was really just a hobby, and I didn't really think I could make a living off of it until I started going out to clubs and seeing, the nightclub ecosystem for DJs. And, I was very lucky to have crossed paths with guys like DJ AM, who really paved the way for a lot of, American DJs, especially the ones that aren't known for their music per se, just like the club DJs.
Right.
You know, when I started DJing, I was getting like a couple $100 a night, for 4 or 5 hours. And AM was really the guy who I think really revolutionized and, got the rates up for a lot of DJs. And he was the first guy in Vegas with $1 million residency at Pure. And I was just really fortunate to have been kind of in his orbit. And my first manager worked for the management company he was signed to. So that really kind of opened up a lot of doors for me. I started playing more clubs and traveling, and just kind of all started from there.
Wow. And did it start off like those, like your first paid gig? Was it at like a venue and you were just like, bringing crates of records in and doing it like that?
So I kind of got into it right at the end of carrying crates of records around. So
okay.
Yes, I got pretty lucky.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So the software that most club DJs use, at least DJs back then used, was called Serato,
Mhm.
and it's a company from New Zealand. And they basically, I don't know if I'm like, all this, and I'm just like,
I don't, and people listening probably don't. So
okay.
I love it. Yeah, like the most unfamiliar territory for me is like electronic. I love listening to electronic and DJ music, but I don't know like how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, basically, this company from New Zealand called Serato, they invented this technology in about 2005, I want to say, that basically they put time code on vinyl. And basically, you can hook up a turntable into a mixer, and then the mixer hooks up to, well, back then it was a box, like an interface, hooks up to your laptop, and then you can play MP3s and digital music as if you have it on
record. Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
So basically, you could have like 20,000 songs on your laptop, and it's as if you had every single vinyl of those albums.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, so that was 2005, and I was like 17 around then. So when I started going out to clubs at that age, AM and the guys that were playing all the clubs had just switched over to that. So I had like a handful of records at home that I was just messing around with, and would bring to parties. I mean, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred records, like not enough to play clubs and do all that stuff. Back then, a DJ's whole value and arsenal was in your record collection. Like if you didn't have the record collection, or you didn't know where to get the records, you didn't know, you weren't a member of record pools, which were like the organizations that record labels would send promo vinyls to, because DJs back then weren't necessarily paying for a lot of these records. They were getting them from the labels to promote the music.
Yeah, it's like a radio station.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know how any of this stuff worked, but all I knew is I was like, what the hell? He's got a laptop and he's scratching the records like it's vinyl. Like, and I was like I was a nerd growing up. I mean, I loved technology, and I was very up on all the most cutting edge stuff. So that like blew my mind. And luckily I had already been collecting a lot of digital music, with Napster and all that stuff. So I had like a ton of digital music. So that was like really exciting to me. And that really, I think, like fast forwarded a lot of things, because, that technology changed everything. It kind of allowed almost anyone to become a DJ, but, like many things, it's like you can do something right, and you can do it just to do it. And, I really kind of paid my dues and opened up for a lot of the bigger DJs when I was younger, and really studied the craft, really, paid respect and appreciated a lot of the guys that came before me, and learned a lot from them. And I still call a lot of them my friends to this day. And that really kind of shaped my perspective as a DJ. You know, at that time, DJs were playing all genres of music. You know, this is before EDM really took over and DJs were like rock stars.
Right.
Back then, there was only a few electronic DJs in the US that were like well known. It was like Moby and I guess Paul Oakenfold, Tiesto, maybe.
Yeah.
The guys from like the UK, Prodigy, and
Fatboy Slim was the one.
Fatboy Slim, of course. Yeah, Fatboy Slim.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot, but yeah.
Yeah. So you know, like DJing to me was never. I mean, I was a fan of some of that music, Daft Punk, like all the, you know, electronica, all that stuff. But as far as DJing went, to me, it was always about being able to play all different types of genres of music. That's how I grew up, and that's how I was exposed to it. So that's sort of always been a part of my, you know, ethos as a DJ. I still, to this day, even though I'm slowly moving more towards electronic and a lot of the music I'm working on is dance music, I still, when I DJ, I always still have that perspective where I'm playing, you know, they call it open format, where you're playing all different genres. And I think that's really been that's sort of allowed me to stay relevant and stay busy touring, is because, you know, I am able to basically go into a lot of these rooms where you've got some of the top names in dance music playing most of their own music, and, you know, these big high energy sets, and I'm still able to match that energy and play in the same rooms by playing all different genres of music. So you know, it didn't happen by accident. This is like, again, I've, you know, almost going on like 20 years of really, you know, going into all these rooms, seeing what records work, seeing what genres, and reading the room, and you know, really just building this arsenal of records that I know work in, you know, in certain ways and in certain places. So
Yeah, it's a whole art form itself, being able to read the room, figure out what songs are going to work, and then being around it enough to know, okay, if I put this one on, it's going to probably just kill the whole party. All right, and I'm sure you have to kind of test those things throughout the years.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's definitely an art, and there's a whole technical side to it as well. And there's a lot of DJs that are, you know, technically a lot better than me, honestly, like with you know, scratching and juggling and doing all these tricks when they DJ. I incorporate a little bit of that, but I consider myself more of like a selector, and more of someone that can you know, seamlessly transition and really just like hold the party down, build the vibe up, and really just like do play seamlessly, and not have to like you know, rely on a lot of tricks and things like that. But I do, you know, admire a lot of the DJs that are technically, you know, much better. And it really is a whole different kind of art form. Like turntablism is like its own, it should be like its own genre of music, honestly. And there's a lot of the, you know, the OGs like Cuber and guys like that put out, you know, breaks and music that's literally for turntablists to use. So I mean, that's I love that part of DJing. It's, you know, it's not like a very mainstream part of it, but it's really cool, and there's a lot of history behind it, and it's super awesome.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, growing up, I was so fascinated by it as well. I bought like 2 turntables. I remember I got it for Christmas. I had like the direct drive ones, and like I had like this Super Ducks, I think is what it was, like a record that had all the it had all the scratching sounds on it. But I never got good at it. But I think it's so cool that because what you do is essentially, I come from radio, so you have like if you're programming like a radio station, you have to you kind of think similar to that. There's like a formula for it, but there's also like,
100%.
will this record go into this record, or is it gonna like just, you know, there's like a flow like to the whole sound of the radio station or whatever the set that you're doing. And it is an art form, and it's the same, similar to like if you're a songwriter and you're putting an album together, there's a reason why the person selects the 3rd song on the album to be there. And there's so much thought that goes behind those things that I think people don't even realize.
For sure. I mean, having good instincts, you know, as a DJ is, I think, the most important thing, you know, having good taste and good instincts, because, you know, especially when you're doing like big clubs, I mean, you can like lose them in like a second. You play like one wrong song, and it's like the difference between like keeping people in the room for like, you know, an extra like 30 minutes or hour, whatever it may be. It's like you said, the programming is so important. And when I first started DJing in Vegas, I was playing at Tao a lot, and Tao was one of the first big mega clubs there in Vegas. And they had a guy there who was also a DJ, but he booked all the DJs. So he was kind of like the conduit between like management and the DJs to
Okay.
make sure that they were like playing, you know, sometimes they would have people come in that wanted to hear certain things. They're spending a lot of money, but like, you know, it's very sensitive when you're telling DJs what to play when they're in the middle of their set. So they had, you know, this guy who I learned a lot from. And he would always look at it like, he would always tell me, you know, look at it like you're programming the night, you know, like you are programming, like that's what it is. And I guess I never really thought about it like from a radio perspective, but that is true, you know.
That's just what because like I said, I programmed radio for a long time, and it would just sitting there, and we used a program called Selector. It's funny that you said that, because you would sit in there and be like, okay, but there's all these tricks and things that you wouldn't I don't know, there's just certain things you wouldn't do because it would sonically it wouldn't make sense. But like if you were to just push a button, the thing could just schedule the whole day in one button. But you have to then go through and figure out, what did it just do? Did it put the same band like next to each other? Did it, you know, it's just it's crazy to think. But I think that's so cool. Is there like, when you're DJing different cities, do you have to cater? Like, I would imagine you kind of have to cater towards that city a bit. Like, would you play certain records in LA that you might not play if you're DJing Chicago, or
100%.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the way I organize my crates, my library, it makes it very easy for me before I go to a certain city. I have my like crates organized. I'm like super OCD with this. So, like, I'll type in like Chicago into my iTunes, and then like all like these Chicago records will come up. And same thing like when I go to Miami or like, you know, New York. New York is just like, there's so much. It's like, yeah, like almost anything works in New York. It's like the melting pot, like everything. But yeah, like a lot of New York hip hop, of course, like all the classics and stuff like that. But definitely, yes, it changes city by city. It also changes by like, you know, by night. You know, a certain night in Chicago, the crowd might be reacting more to hip hop, so like play more hip hop and kind of like Chicago hip hop, or they might be reacting more to dance music. So I'll constantly have to be adapting throughout the night based on the crowd, because again, they're not really there necessarily to see me. They're not buying tickets to see me. They're just there to have a good time,
Have fun. Yeah.
And it's my job to really, you know, be the MC, I guess, and figure out sort of what everyone wants and what's going to make everyone move and what's going to make everyone happy. So yeah, that's
Yeah, it's not like you come in with like okay, here's my playlist, and and you just could hit it and go. It's like you really have to be on the fly watching kind of how the crowd's reacting to certain records.
I mean, I'll have an idea, of course, of like what I'm going to play, and like sort of a starting point, and then based on that kind of see what feels good. And yeah, it's great. I mean, it's one of the most fun parts of DJing, you know, is like those being able to adapt, and also, you know, sometimes trying new records, you know, you know, waiting for the right moment. Because I think a lot of times with new music, people you know, are sensitive to like when they want to hear familiar stuff for the most part, you know, at least like in the mainstream clubs, a lot of the spots I do. And you know, when you play new stuff, you really got to time it right, or else you'll just lose them.
Right. Yeah. It's like when an artist goes, all right, this is a new one. And then everyone goes to the bathroom or like buys a drink.
Yeah.
You have to like kind of know where to place those. Is there do you remember a time you put a record on that you weren't sure of, a new one or something that you like, I don't know if is this gonna work, and then it like blew your mind, like, oh my, or the first time you played whatever and it just like you knew it was a hit instantly.
Um, oh yeah, actually I do. Um, I mean, I'm sure there's been multiple, but this one just like comes to mind. I remember I was DJing in LA the day that the first Roddy Rich album came out, and I had literally just downloaded it right before I got to the club, like on my computer at my place. I walked over and I was listening to some of the songs on the way, and I heard that song, The Box.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, man, I gotta play this. I gotta play this tonight. This sounds like it could go crazy. And then I played it, and one of Roddy's A&Rs or something was like actually in the club also, and heard me play it. And we ended up playing it like 5 times in a row, like literally. I just kept
That's
bringing it back.
awesome.
But right when I played it like that first time, I had like knew right away, like, yeah,
Like, this is a
that record,
smash.
that record was going to be a problem, and it ended up going #1 on Billboard, I think, for
Yeah,
like
I
a
think
little.
it was like the number one record
Yeah,
last year, year before. Yeah, it's crazy. So I
yeah,
did
those
watch
slow
the
hip hop songs too. Sorry to interrupt. Those
no.
I'm always very wary of those slow hip hop songs, because that one was like 55 BPM or something. It was like a really slow one. So I'm
Oh
always like
wow.
wary of those, because those in the club can sometimes be like downers. Unless it's like all like a straight hip hop night where they're kind of expecting that, but those can sometimes be downers. But that one was like, yeah, that one was an exception for sure.
Yeah, there's a specific BPM that people kind of shoot for, right? In pop music.
These days, not really.
Oh, okay. I thought there
Yeah,
was like some kind of benchmark, but I guess maybe I'm wrong.
these days, not really. And it's
Okay.
funny. Sometimes on my Instagram, I'll like scroll and I get all these like, on my explore page, I see all these like music production tip pages, and it's like
Uh-huh.
hip hop is 100 to 130 BPM,
Right, right.
and
Maybe I'm just
like,
getting sucked
who
in
is
by these
making these
people.
rules? Who is making these rules?
Obviously, I'm not a DJ. So,
Yeah,
wow.
funny.
Okay. Well, I did see your video that you made, I think with Kane earlier. I watched it with you. Yeah, that partnership with
Oh, that's right.
Tequila.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
we
cool
haven't put
video.
that we haven't put that video out yet, actually. So you got the
Oh,
yes on that.
cool. Like, tell me about that. And it's just a venture you have with Don
Yeah,
Julio, or
so
like,
yeah, so we started working with Don Julio a few years ago. I started doing some events for them, DJing some events. I DJed a Super Bowl party for them early on.
oh, I
And
saw that video too. I think that's on your website though.
yeah, that was a
Yeah.
recent Super Bowl party, but the one I'm talking about was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and I had done that party with Little John and Diplo, and it was a really really dope Super Bowl party. And I met one of the senior executives that does all the marketing for Don Julio, and we were chatting about, getting DJs involved to push 1942, because at that time it was really starting to become a big trendy thing in the clubs. This is Escobar.
What's up, Cat? Escobar. I like that.
It was like a big trendy thing in the clubs. So, I was telling her name's Dom. I was like, you guys should get some DJs to be ambassadors, because we have a lot of these clients and people that go out to clubs and pop bottles and spend money in clubs, follow us, and they're the ones that, that's your target demographic, at least for if you want to build the brand in nightclubs.
Mhm.
So, it kind of just all evolved from there, and now they have a whole team of DJs, brand ambassadors basically. And we DJ events for them, we create content, and it's been a great partnership.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah, I saw that video. I was like, this is really rad. And you're, kind of just chatting about music, and then, obviously the
Yeah,
tequila
that's
and
a newer thing that I'm trying to kind of push the brand to do more of, is sort of go behind the scenes and see how 1942 plays a part in creative process, because everywhere I go, rappers, singers, songwriters, producers, everybody loves tequila now, and everybody loves 1942. I go into sessions, they're drinking 42. I go in the club, so it's a big part of the creative process. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of like highlight it.
That's cool. That's so awesome. And you've got some official remixes coming out, or you just released some?
I have a remix coming soon for Summer Walker. That's just been taking a little while with the label to get out, but I think it's going to come out pretty soon. And then I have a bunch of original music that I've been working on the last year that's we're getting ready to drop in the next few months and into next year. So it's gonna be a lot of new music next year. I'm really excited. It's been a process, really figuring out sort of what direction I want to go, and also just such a learning process, collaborating with other songwriters and producers, and like I said earlier, figuring out the best way to get the best final product. Because again, I come from a very different perspective than a lot of the EDM artists, I guess you'd call them, where they have a very specific sound, and that's sort of what they focus on, and what their fan base expects. I'm kind of trying to make more song driven music, meaning like the song is really the backbone. The production could be anything really. It could be rap, it could be dance hall, it could be house, it could be trap, whatever it is. But I've really kind of started focusing on going in the studio and just starting from scratch with some chords and working with a songwriter and getting a song before I even start producing it out. And it's sort of the last year, I think I've really kind of sharpened my tools and grown as a producer, as an engineer, and collaborating with all these talented people, that it's really all kind of starting to come together. And it is going more towards dance music, but again, I'm not just going to make dance music. Like, I could put out a couple dance singles, and I'm going to put a dance hall Afrobeat, or I'm a piano record. So like, there's no rules for me. It's just really about making great songs.
I love it, man. I can't wait to hear it. And thank you so much for taking time and chatting with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I have one more quick question before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
For an aspiring recording artist, like
or anything, yeah, recording artist, DJ, anything you've kind of picked up along the way.
I would say don't overthink the creative process. I would say there's always going to be people that don't like what you're making, but there's always going to be people that like what you're making. Everyone's taste is so different, and that's something that I've really started to accept, is that you just got to do you, and you got to make what truly makes you happy and what comes to you naturally, and don't worry about who's going to like it or not, because people are going to like it. It's just the statistics, but I think people, because of social media and because a lot of the pressure that goes into making music and making sure it gets likes and streams, all this stuff, people sometimes don't make what they truly want to make, or don't work on what they truly want to work on because of these pressures. It's just like, ignore that. Bringing it backward.